Fraternity have sung in unison on retiring Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga's memorable judgments and his standard of humanity. The Constitutional Court held a special ceremony for the acting Deputy Chief Justice today after spending 12 years at the Apex Court and a total of 17 years on the bench. Ahead of Madlanga is the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkwananzi's allegations. During today's sitting, speaking on behalf of the Pan-African Bar Association, PABASA, Advocate Muzi Sikhakhane said Madlanga should be celebrated for his humility.
In this court, in you and others, we found people with our common epistemic backgrounds who could see when we were upset, who could sympathize with us, and we were not invisible to them. You loved the poor, you worked for them, because poverty is not the absence of resources and money, it's the absence of dignity, being invisible to those who dominate the discourse.
At the same time, NPA head Shamila Batoy says Madlanga has brought more to the Apex Court than just intellectual distinction.
Through his conduct, Justice Madlanga demonstrated that one can be brilliant without arrogance, principled without rigidity, and powerful without being overbearing and domineering. He has reminded us all that the rule of law is not an abstraction. It is a living commitment to fairness, to accountability, and to justice for all.
Economists say the decision to cut the repo rate by 25 basis points by the Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee will go some way to spurring growth in the country's sluggish economy. Earlier, Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago wrapped up the MPC's July meeting with an announcement on adjustments to the policy rates. During his signature address, Kganyago weighed the heightened global risks against the more favorable domestic conditions. Nokanya Mtambo takes a look at the reactions to the MPC's decision.
Today's 25 basis point cut is the second consecutive one since the May meeting. Economics professor at the Northwest University Business School, Raymond Parsons, says the move was the right decision for the economy in present circumstances. He says the easing in borrowing costs for business and consumers are positive for confidence levels at a time when the GDP continues to undershoot. Economist at Sanlam Investments, Patrick Buthelezi, also weighs in.
Locally, economic growth forecast has been revised lower to about 0.9% this year, but is expected to improve in the outer years, reaching 2% in 2027, benefiting from the implementation of structural reforms.
But Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago says uncertainty triggered by disruptive U.S. trade policy cannot be ignored.
The challenges of the global environment highlight the urgency of domestic reform for accelerating growth.
During the MPC announcement, the central bank also revised its inflation target down to 3% on the lower end of its inflation target band of 3 and 6%, an unexpected move economists have also welcomed. Nokukhanya Mtambo, Eyewitness News.
Please call me inventor Nkosana Makate says he remains resilient despite a constitutional court setback in his long-running battle with Vodacom. Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga handed down a judgment today which set aside a Supreme Court ruling in Makate's favor and referred the matter back to be heard by a different panel. After nearly 20 years of legal battles, Makate is demanding compensation from Vodacom for the Please Call Me product, with the company offering 47 million rand, while he maintains he's entitled to billions. The Constitutional Court has referred the matter back to the Supreme Court but orders that it be heard before a different panel. But Makate believes the Apex Court could have rather come to a conclusive finding today.
Well, I'm still resilient. I'll forever be. We'll go to the SCA, and the SCA must just relook at the case and then provide us with the judgment that will then stand the test.
And with just hours to go before America's sweeping global tariffs for most countries kicks in, President Donald Trump has paused putting higher tariffs on Mexico for another 90 days. This as other countries try to secure a deal before the midnight deadline, failing which exporters will have to pay the taxes to the government. Trump announced his tariff plan in April, but he paused it so countries could negotiate new trade deals. Many nations do not yet have a deal with the U.S. and face steep tariff rates from tomorrow. as high as 50% for Brazil. Trump hit out at Canada and India on his Truth Social platform, casting doubt on their trade relationship with the U.S. Meanwhile, a panel of judges on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit in Washington is set to rule on whether Trump exceeded his authority in implementing sweeping tariffs with global partners. The court hearing on the legality of these tariffs wrapped up this evening, and the BBC reports the Trump administration is maintaining that courts have no part to play in reviewing that decision, saying it's up to Congress. Gold's trading at $3,296.99 an ounce. The rand's at 18.19 to the dollar, at 24.05 to the pound, at 20.77 to the euro. Brent crude oil at $72.54 a barrel.
Traffic remains heavily backed up in the Protea Glen area on the N12 westbound between the R554 Abu Bakr Drive and the R558. Still in Protea Glen. Expect heavy delays on the R559 main road opposite GOG Gardens. And in the mother city, we're still dealing with that accident scene on Prince George Drive between Joe Marks Boulevard and Military Road, causing heavy delays.
A look at your weather. Clear skies in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 7 degrees and peak at highs of 19. Pretoria is at 9 and 21. Vereeniging's at 4 and 17. A cloudy start for Cape Town, otherwise fine, along with fresh southeasterly winds at a low of 9 and a high of 16 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. President Cyril Ramaphosa has appointed Gauteng Judge President Dustin Mlambo as the Deputy Chief Justice of South Africa.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, honored as the best bank for ESG in Africa and South Africa by Euro Money Awards for Excellence 2025.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
8 after 7, good morning. 8 after 7, good evening. Listen to me. Okay, plenty coming up. I was following very closely the court case that happened last week. Emma Sadler, the social media lawyer, and her colleagues essentially got a ruling forcing Meta, the owners of WhatsApp, to basically cough up the number and the sort of name, the SIM card details of a person who was responsible for producing some of the most hideous content there is under the sun, effectively things involving young children or younger people. And I've been thinking to myself and wondering to myself that this might be the beginning of the end of the sort of end-to-end encryption that you see on WhatsApp. I'm not saying that it is. I just wonder if it might be the kind of thin end of the wedge. Well, Siphumelele Zondi, I think he has a view. I'll ask him for a bit more about that and just put it to him and see what he has to say in a moment. But he's also looking at how British companies are trying to get data from tech companies. Small business focus, Charlene Lowe, the CEO of the Beer Association of South Africa, realize there's a lot of beer on the program tonight. Not a drop to drink here, I can tell you. Talking about how they're trying to help microbrewers. And then investment school this evening. David Shapiro, always a treat to have David Shapiro on the program. I mean, how you manage your portfolio in a time of protectionism really is the thing that's moving markets at the moment, isn't it? What's going to happen tomorrow? I'm sure you'll have a view, actually, on what you're doing with your portfolio during this time. David will take your questions too. Good to hear from you tonight on 011 883 0702 and 021 446 0567.
The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app
and DSTV channel 856.
I saw confirmation today from NERSA, the energy regulator. They've decided there is simply no license for car power ships. It's a big victory for civil society. I mean, I remember hearing the chief operating officer of car power ships, she was in Turkey, basically being very confident. Look, we're going ahead. We're going to get everything we need. And she was just clearly wrong. And I think there are all sorts of lessons for foreign companies who are trying to come into South Africa and bulldoze their way through. Now, I wonder if Elon Musk is taking some notes. You do have to actually watch out for South Africa a little bit. People will go to court. They'll fight you. They'll find ways if they don't like what you're doing. If there's a legal way for them to stop you, they'll do it. I have to say, from the very beginning, I thought this was just a bad idea. And it has its origins, I'm afraid to say, actually in a proposal or a sort of emergency power procurement program that was coming from the energy minister at the time, Gwede Mantashe, no longer in charge of energy, of course. But it was a very bizarre idea, and it just was never going to get off the ground, or in this case, into the harbour. And I was very, very glad to see the back of car power ships. I wonder if they were on the same plane as Bain.
The Money Show, Tech Thursday.
Well, repeated claims that the British government is asking some of the big US tech companies or some of the big tech companies, basically, if they can access their data through a back door. That means you might think you're in a private place, when in fact you're not. Siphumelele Zondi is our tech expert. Siphumelele, good evening. What do we know about which companies have asked for this backdoor access?
Hello, Stephen. So basically what it is that it seems like it's the UK government itself that's what's being accused of having asked Meta and Google, rather Apple and Google, for this backdoor access to some of the data that they hold of some of the people that use the platform, or a backdoor basically for them to be able to enter through that backdoor and retrieve some of the data that they'd like to use.
What do they want to do with the data? I mean, this is exactly what conspiracy theories, movies, WhatsApp groups are made of.
But do they not say that data is the new oil, right?
Yes.
And the one that holds it can basically control and know a lot about individuals, and just about everybody is utilizing the internet nowadays. And it's, to be honest, when you go back in history and Facebook or Meta, when it was still called Facebook, they did come out to say that some governments around the world would continuously ask them for certain information about certain persons of interest. So I suppose it should be a continuation of that, or maybe even an extra layer that the UK government is being accused of here, of saying now no longer asking the organization itself, but having some backdoor created for it to be able to get in, access the information, and then get out and close the back door when it doesn't need it.
There's some big changes happening in some other countries. There are adult websites. In the UK, they're now asking for user data verification. I know there's a lot of political pressure on them to do this, and I think that pressure will grow around the world. Some users seem concerned about it.
Oh, totally. And the thing is that there really is no verification that the person who is accessing this adult content that's available on very many websites online is actually over the age of 18. So what UK law is now starting to require is that people put in their personal information that can verify that they actually are over the age of 18. So you can't view on anonymity when you're visiting these adult websites anymore. If you're in the UK, you might have to part with your own personal data to actually let them know that you hold an ID, you are over 18, and you have their local ID number.
Sure. I mean, I imagine if people get a backdoor into that, all sorts of things could happen.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because it also, we always speak about protection of private information. In South Africa, people often use POPIA to speak about the protection of themselves and where their data is and who has access to this data. And we sometimes even hear about companies being hacked as well, and certain personal information ending up in the wrong hands or hands of people who end up selling it in the dark web sometimes. So those are some of the worries, that if you are using these or accessing these adult websites, and now you have to put in your personal information in order to gain access to it. What if someone infiltrates that information and says, aha, Stephen Grootes is a frequent visitor of this particular adult website? Yeah,
no, all sorts of things can happen. Siphumelele, I was wondering how closely you were watching the court case last week. Essentially, an organization, I think correctly, went to Meta and said, we know that this WhatsApp person on a WhatsApp channel is basically propagating, transmitting, distributing child pornography. We think it should be stopped. We want information about this person. And the court ruled in their favor. Now, I think we have become, as a world, kind of used to the idea that what we say to each other on WhatsApp is end-to-end encrypted. The idea is that no one can get into it, right? I wondered if this was maybe a little chink in that armor, the beginning of the end of sort of feeling like that about WhatsApp. Not now, maybe not in 5 years, but maybe over time.
I suppose these are the discussions that can start, right? Because what happened in this case is that a group of lawyers basically went to court, right, to ask for basically to force Meta to take down, and Meta did take down certain accounts that were sharing videos, and sometimes these videos could be shared in groups, and those groups could be accessed by children, but sometimes the videos, there's a possibility that the videos could even have children in them as well, in compromising positions. And we do know that children sometimes have been found to distribute this information amongst themselves, but sometimes it ends up in the hands of people who want to do sinister things as well and share it in groups. So this group of lawyers went to court, and they basically, and the ruling that was made is that it needs to be taken down for one, and they also then need to start targeting the individuals that are sharing this particular information. And yes, possibly because in the past we thought this end-to-end encryption on WhatsApp and other platforms that we use, but maybe the conversation should be end-to-end encryption, perhaps if you are not believed to be sharing information that could be a threat to society or certain sectors of society, like children, for example.
I mean, people can celebrate, and I think correctly, that they were able to win this court action against Meta. Very unlikely you'll be able to do anything against Telegram or Signal.
No, you probably are unlikely going to do anything around about them now. But going ahead in future, there probably would be we'd have to these companies that are allowing the distribution of pornography, and even if they don't have end-to-end encryption, but maybe this is where our laws need to come in as countries, as individual countries, on what laws can be used in order for citizens of the country, especially young people, young children, to be protected. But maybe we need to start designing laws. And as you say, maybe not next year, but going into the future on what can be done, so we don't have to go to courts to then be forcing these companies to do something about it.
Siphumelele Zondi, thanks so much, our tech expert on The Money Show. I'm fascinated by that case and what the implications may be. And I think there might actually be quite serious implications. I think generally positive, but I do also think over time, the sort of kind of absolute privacy you and I have become accustomed to on WhatsApp may soon start to fade away. I don't know how you feel about that. I mean, would it change your conversations? I mean, if someone had to go through my conversations, I think I'd need to buy them something just to apologize for being so utterly boring. I mean, can you imagine having to do that? But of course, it wouldn't be a human. It would be some bot somewhere sitting in the cloud, first name, letter, second letter I, first letter A, second letter I, and just basically doing, what they do. Who knows? They might also hallucinate or hallucinate or whatever it is about what they actually find. But I wonder if this will change the way you use WhatsApp. On 011 883 0702, your view too, please, on 021 446 0567.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us, because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Son or daughter graduating soon? The Gibbs Full-Time Postgraduate Diploma in Business Administration, a one-year honors-level qualification, is designed for young graduates from all disciplines. This highly practical program includes an internship and is structured to increase employability and fast-track career success. To learn more and for details about our next information session, go to gibbs.co.za/full-time PDBA. Gibbs is a Triple Crown internationally accredited business school in Ilovo, Sandton.
702 and Corporates That Care with Bata are talking about Bata Children's Program.
We've run school donations, volunteer days. We have about 82 people in our head office in KZN. They frequently go down to the Malvern Children's Home. The Malvern Children's Home is a home for orphans that we've adopted basically in the KZN region. We've assisted them with jungle gyms, water tanks, stationary libraries. We've built a library for them, as mentioned. Unfortunately, the Malvern Children's Home has a R1 million debt that water and electricity debt.
Sure.
So we've created a GoFundMe page, and a portion of the proceeds from our Mandela Day shoe sales will go towards this cause. So when corporates choose Toughies for their Mandela Day giving, they're not just buying the school shoes, they're helping children keep their home running.
From jungle gyms to school supplies and life-changing donations, Bata is building brighter futures. Visit bata.co.za to learn more. 702. Let's walk the talk. The Money Show. Small business focus.
Small Business Focus is brought to you by Capitec. No matter the size of your business, Capitec's got you. We're one of the most interesting segments of our smaller businesses. If you had to do a sort of head count of smaller businesses around the country, you'd find many of them are involved in the sale of alcohol, but some are also involved in the production of alcohol. There's been a lot of conversation around how to help smaller brewers later. Charlene Lowe's, the CEO of the Beer Association of South Africa. Charlene, good evening. You must get a lot of attention on LinkedIn with that kind of title, so thanks so much for coming in. On the one side, brewing beer, I'm told, is not that hard. It can be done fairly cheaply. On the other side, there is unbelievably massive competition. How tough is it for a smaller brewer?
I must be honest with you, it is extremely tough for a small brewer. In fact, it is quite labor intensive for smaller brewers because they don't have the automation and the very fancy systems, if you will, that the larger brewers have. And so they, in fact, are a big catalyst to job creation because, in fact, it takes a little bit more than just one person. They don't have the systems. So, they appoint anything between 10 to 20 people to brew in a small scale brewing operation. So they could play quite a significant role if enabled and supported to just influence a little bit more in terms of our job creation.
They also need to distinguish themselves, define themselves. There's so much beer, I'm told, on the market that you actually need to work quite hard at having something new.
Absolutely. I must find, though, that we're finding consumer preferences, in fact, are improving, sophisticated, a little bit more.
I don't know what that means.
Meaning, as you've probably heard a little bit earlier, fruit-infused beers, we've got sour beers, we've got beer spritzers, and so the consumer palate is evolving. And so craft brewers, in fact, are meeting that need and that evolution, if one could put it that way. And so we're finding that there's keen interest in what they then produce, but certainly the market isn't very friendly to smaller brewers. Distribution channels are expensive. Access to market is quite challenging. Your cold chain, transportation and storage is expensive for an SMME brewer. So the market is simply not set up to see them succeed. But many of them still do, notwithstanding some of those challenges.
I think it's the love for it. But, I've heard it said, and you make a point about distribution, that beer is easy to produce and really hard to distribute. And part of that is because it's quite big, it's bulky, it's a liquid, you've got to move it around, it's got to be kept in a certain way. All of those things are quite complicated, and that's really where the real cost comes.
Oh, absolutely. You think about the cost of glass, the cost of actually setting up a canning plant for any of these SMME brewers is quite inhibiting. And so, inhibiting in an environment where these agencies that have been, shall I say, established to support SMMEs broadly have found themselves not really playing a very big role in supporting SMMEs within the alcohol space and in particular in the beer production space. And so that's where we come in, I suppose, as an association to, forge these partnerships to bring a different light and picture to brewing. And we've seen some relationships that have borne fruit, where financial institutions are now seeing funding and helping scale brewers, something that is quite viable, and even export markets at this point. We've had discussions with the DTIC, and there's a keenness to support smaller brewers getting their products out of the country because they see that also as a very viable way for them to gain a different type of access to an African market beyond South Africa.
Look, I mean, if we get it into the US, they'll realize immediately that it's better. It's just getting it in. Because, I mean, I honestly don't know what it is that they drink. It's interesting. Are you suggesting that some of the people who normally back smaller businesses sort of veer away from alcohol, basically?
Yes. What we have found and the lived experience of SMME brewers within not just the brewing and beer industry, but within the alcohol industry in general, there's shyness of these government SMME funding agencies to fund alcohol companies. I think they're viewed in a very negative light. Sure. They're not seen as catalysts to job creation, to, shall I say, revitalizing township economies and really contributing to those township economies. But I think with the inroads that we've made and in showing that different side of beer and that economic impact of beer, we're starting to see change, absolutely.
It's very interesting. I mean, it's one thing that's really changed, and I find this so often with smaller businesses in the the conversations I've had, is that advertising can now be virtually free. It's very easy to take a picture of Stephen enjoying his beer, post it on your socials, and off you go. I mean, that must make a bit of a difference.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we play our part in supporting them as well, because I think skills development, enterprise development is extremely important. Many of them find themselves in the alcohol industry or the brewing business, not with any level of business education.
Going to beer to do accounts.
Absolutely. Or a BCom degree. And so we want to professionalize them further. We want to help them to grow. So, supporting them with that type of capacitation around business skills, financial management, customer service, responsible trade, and just, marketing for dummies, if you will.
Yeah.
Because marketing budgets, we all know, many of them won't have, and it's quite expensive. But the digital platform does create a very viable platform for them to actually showcase their products in a very inexpensive way. And that's the support and the capacitation that we give them as well in terms of part of our skills development program.
Do you think it's going to get easier or harder? So, I mean, on one level, you talk about, it's astonishing what kind of beer you can get now, and that diversity should create more kind of market space. Does maybe come with more competition. There are some very big companies. So what do you think is going to happen in the longer run? Beer's been around for centuries. I think the oldest beer is like 5,000 years old or something. But do you think there's still going to be much space for these microbrewers to really grow?
I believe so. And maybe let me answer it in two parts to say, if you look at the likes of, shall I say, your darling brewers, your Signal Hill, those are brands that have only been around under 15 years.
Yeah.
And yet they've taken the market by storm. You walk into any retailer right now, you find them there.
Everyone's scared of bomb squad.
There we go. And here we find them in the retail stores as well. They're exporting outside of South Africa as well. So those are some of the, shall I say, good stories to tell around microbrewers that ultimately became what they are right now, household brands that we know. And with the right type of backing and enablement, I do believe there's a space for them in the market. But also, I think there's an entire African market that's available to them as well that I think they ought to be exploring too.
Not sure how well Bomb Squad's going to go down in New Zealand or, dare I say, France. Charlene Lowe, thanks very much indeed. Nice to meet you, CEO of the Beer Association of South Africa.
Why pay more for business banking? Does your account come with a private jet? A 5-star lunch? A butler named James? Didn't think so. At Capitec, you get the same low fees as personal banking, so you always know what you get and what you pay. Open your account in minutes and save up to 50% on transaction fees. Visit capitecbank.co.za to get started. Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Capitec is an authorized FSP. 46669. Conditions apply.
The Money Show on 702.
Monday to Friday, 6 to 8 p.m.
All right, you're in for a treat. David Shapiro on Investment School this evening. Been around for a little while in the markets, as I think he'll probably be happy to tell you. But how you trade, how you invest in the storm of tariffs that we're faced now, the whole way the world is changing, what it also does to prices in the shorter term, what it does to sentiment in the longer term. I'd be really interested to hear your question on this tonight. I'm sure you've got better questions than I do. 011 8830 702 and 021 446 567. Voice notes as well. Of course, you can WhatsApp questions too on 072 702 1702. It's just gone 7:30. Time for the latest Eyewitness News.
Thanks, Stephen. Good evening. Taxpayers have spent nearly 170 million rand over the past 5 years guarding VIPs that are not part of the national executive. This has been revealed in a reply to a parliamentary question from Rise Mzansi. The figure is on top of the hefty 1.3 billion rand already spent on protecting the president and ministers over the same period. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
In reply to a question from Rise Mzansi's Makashule Ghana, the police minister said VIPs in 3 categories are eligible for protection. The first being speakers and deputy speakers of the national and provincial legislatures and the chairpersons of the National Council of Provinces. In this category, around 22 members are protected annually, and over the past 5 years, the police had spent 71 million rand, excluding the salaries of protection officers, travel and vehicles, which are provided by the respective legislatures. Identified members of the judiciary, including the Chief Justice and Deputy, and the heads and deputy judge presidents of other court divisions, fall into a second category, on which the state spent a further 45 million rand. A third category of ad hoc VIPs, which includes individuals of strategic importance to the country, cost another 53 million rand. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
KwaZulu-Natal police have arrested 2 suspects in connection with the murder of a Kwadukuza local municipality employee. Nukulunga Mashabane was shot last month while driving in the North Coast. Mashabane was appointed as a manager for intergovernmental relations and protocol in the mayor's office. Police spokesperson Robert Nechunda has confirmed that one of those arrested is Mashabane's husband.
An intensive investigation by Kwadukuza police detectives working together with private security has led to the arrest of the husband of a woman who was found dead inside a vehicle in Kwadukuza on 27 June 2025. Police investigations also connected a second suspect to the crime, and he was also traced and arrested.
He says the pair will make a court appearance. In the mother city, the Cape Town City Hall clock could be heard chiming throughout the CBD again today after being defunct for 15 years. The clock, which was installed in 1905, has now been restored after about 6 months of delicate work. City of Cape Town project manager Marius Skuman details how the bell strike and chime functions of the clock were restored.
While we decided to actually repair that aspect, we decided to do a full restoration while we were there in the first place, and that entailed a full disassembly of the whole mechanism.
Skuman says the team then identified areas which needed attention,
and then also restoring the chime mechanism with that as well. So, and also then putting some maintenance systems in place to ensure the integrity of the mechanism going forward.
He says the maintenance of the clock will ensure it keeps chiming for generations to come. And the United States says it will deny visas to Palestinian Authority officials accusing the body, which governs parts of the Israeli-occupied West Bank, of seeking to internationalize the situation. The statement did not specify who was being targeted, only saying it would deny visas to members of the Palestine Liberation Organization and officials from the Palestinian Authority. The measures against the Palestinian Authority comes as growing numbers of countries consider recognizing a Palestinian state. Canada and France are among the latest nations to announce they will grant recognition during the UN General Assembly meeting, which takes place in September in New York. A look at your weather. A fine Friday in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Temperatures will drop to overnight lows of 4 and 9 degrees and peak at highs between 17 and 21 degrees. A cloudy start for Cape Town, otherwise fine, along with fresh southeasterly winds at a low of 9 and a high of 16 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News. Taxpayers have spent nearly 170 million rand over the past 5 years guarding VIPs that are not part of the national executive.
When your business needs labor, fast, compliant, and ready to deliver, you need more than just staffing. You need a triple BEE Level 1 partner with scale, speed, and 50 years of proven expertise. Workforce Staffing supports thousands of businesses across industries with fully managed, legally compliant temporary workforce solutions across South Africa and beyond. Visit workforcestaffing.co.za today and let's get to work. Workforce Staffing. the preferred staffing partner.
Be in the right place at the right time with Betway's jackpot slots. Stand to win your share of millions of rands in cash every week. Bet on selected slots every Thursday and Friday night between 7 and 10 p.m. and you could be our next big winner. The more you play, the more chances to win. Get way more only at Betway. Terms and conditions apply. Betway is licensed by the Mpumalanga Economic Regulator. No persons under the age of 18 are permitted to gamble. NRGP counseling line 0800 006 008. All events are fixed odds betting games.
I think it's time for an adventure. We could visit the grandkids, check on a London apartment while we're there, or we could meet them in Dubai and look at properties along the way.
Why settle in one place when you can be a global citizen? If it's on your mind, it's on ours. Partner with a wealth banker who will connect your global banking, lending and investments on a single platform. See money differently. Nedbank Private Wealth. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
The Money Show.
Investment School.
The Investment School is brought to you by ABSA Business Banking. Talk business with the bank that gets it. ABSA Business Banking. Well, I'm not sure, but I'm hoping that by this time tomorrow, we'll know what's going to happen with US tariffs. That in fact, there'll have been a post on Truth Social or something, or some announcement somewhere, maybe on the lawn of the White House, that the US President Donald Trump will finally explain what it is we're going to have to deal with. I mean, I have greater hopes than that. I have hopes that, in fact, there'll be no tariffs at all, but I think that unfortunately is unlikely. And you know how this current period really is playing havoc with share prices. And some of the ups and downs, and we're used to seeing ups and downs, are really startling. Well, David Shapiro has agreed to help us chart a way through this territory. He's a veteran stockbroker and chief global equity strategist at Sasfin. David, good evening, and thanks for giving us some time on Investment School tonight.
With pleasure, on a subject that nobody knows anything about.
Do you know, if there's one thing everyone's been honest about, is that no one knows what's going to happen. As a very sort of base level, when we have trade tensions like this, I think there's certain things that we can say. I mean, clearly they do have a direct influence on sentiment. People are nervous. And one way I see that on the JSE is when there's a little bit of bad news for one share, that share gets really punished. A little bit of good news for one share, that share gets really rewarded, out of what I think is out of all proportion to what we normally see.
No, at the moment we're going through enormous volatility. And just if you want to refer to the JSE today, and this has got nothing to do with tariffs, this has all got to do with Powell yesterday not suggesting that rates are going to come down in the United States. He gave no hint of reducing rates. So what happens is the dollar's got stronger, the euro's got weaker, the European markets got weaker, and we got hammered. We got hammered particularly in shares like Mondi and AB InBev down 10%. So Stephen, when you talk about why 10%? That's a huge amount if you consider the value of AB InBev, which is R1 trillion, more than R1 trillion company. So 10% takes a lot of. So that's what we're going through at the moment. We are going through enormous amount of volatility, and to refer to tariffs, a lot of it is around. When I say uncertainty, nobody is quite sure how this is all going to play out in the end. And, Trump loves it. He loves to be in control. And this gives him kind of control by having everybody, in this kind of state.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. And a previous episode of Investment School, or I should say a previous lesson, we had a very interesting conversation around how to control your emotions when you're investing, how to be entirely rational. Now, look, entirely rational people are boring, but they are very useful. I sense that the emotion many people are seeing at the moment is almost a slight tinge of fear. So is the investing we're seeing at the moment rational or emotional? I mean, obviously it's a mixture of both, but you know what I mean.
No, it's always emotional. Every day on the stock market, on any market, it's emotional, and it's always been like that. And if it's not emotional, then I can't go to sleep. You know what I'm saying? That's how you go to sleep, because it's that kind of tension that keeps you alive. But Stephen, this is nothing unusual, and I really mean it. I think what has changed, though, over the many, many years is that money flows faster and we get information faster. So therefore, because of so much speculation in the market, the movements are exaggerated, more so than they have been. But the tensions are still there, and the emotions have never really changed, in the markets. So wait until we go in for 24-hour-a-day market. It isn't going to be an end. So you're just going to go through this kind of cycle the whole time.
So a moment like this, and I mean, there's certain things that are pretty obvious, gold, buy gold, things like that. Are there particular sectors or asset classes that we should avoid, just point blank, I want nothing to do with? And I mean, we've heard from Claire Logayose in the past about how Apple is never going to be the same again, for example, as a company because of what's happened. It doesn't matter what the US does, Apple will never be able to be what it was.
I don't know. I mean, do you want to try that out, Stephen? Leave your phone at home tomorrow, okay? Just leave it at home and go and try to survive without your Apple phone. Well, I'm assuming you have an Apple or...
I have a Samsung, but yes.
Samsung, the same thing. Okay, go leave it at home. And you'll realize that you can't do anything. You can't call an Uber. You can't use the... It's such an important part of us today that even though I know it's going under some short-term pressure, I mean, it's still a huge business that is over $3 trillion. Not rand, $3 trillion. I mean, that's more than the JSE itself. And its services, it's got many, many services that it provides. But for the meantime, yes, it is going under a bit of pressure, largely on the tariff story. A lot has to do with tariffs because they don't want to. They've moved production into India. Mr. Trump is very upset and is putting a lot of pressure on them. So there are issues like the Apple story, I think, which are being hammered by what's happening, by the tariff story.
So which asset classes do we avoid? I mean, what do we move away from in a moment like this?
Well, the interesting thing is you probably got to avoid everything because there's so much turmoil. But the one area that has been able to just brush to the side has been the tech area. And, we're going back to the Magnificent Seven, and we're going back to shares that extend beyond that. So I think those because of the spending that's taken place, and because it is such a vibrant area, and there's so much, if you looked at Microsoft's numbers yesterday, or you looked at Meta's number, their spend, I mean, it goes into the multi-billion dollars that they're spending in R&D. And so that's one area that has given us almost an island of comfort. They're big. I mean, it's still the top 10 account for about 40% of the S&P, but that's been an area that has managed to overcome all of this. But all the consumer sides, the manufacturing sides, the metal sides, all of those, food, everything like that is subject to issues, to tariffs, and no one can work it out.
Yeah.
Think about that Apple phone that we're talking about. I mean, they're components from all over. The casing comes from one country. The screen comes from another country. The battery from another country. So when you put it together, and you're trying to work out what the tariffs are going to be, it creates huge complications. And I think that's what so many countries are going through at the moment, or so many industry, not working out, not understanding how this is eventually going to play through.
So, okay, I mean, you can obviously put money into the Magnificent Seven from here in various ways. But if you're looking for South African stocks in a moment like this, I'm kind of thinking you still want the companies that have a bit of growth in them, that have been doing very well, have a strong consumer base. And I immediately sort of come to, just off the top of my head, Capitec and ShopRite.
Okay.
And because those would be, yes, like everything else, they'll be affected. They represent all of society in some ways, actually. But there's still growth there, and that case is still quite strong.
You're right. That is an area. The only negative area on that, or the negative argument, is that for example, if first of all, if there are tariffs, I'm going to be on the side that we're not going to pay tariffs. Trump's going to relent and he's going to extend it. So he's done that with Mexico now.
Yeah.
He's done that, another 90 days.
David Shapiro is hard tacker.
Yes, yes. So I think he will back down. I don't think his case is that strong, but I don't think they'll say, okay, we'll extend it for another 90 days or whatever it's going to be. So I don't think this is going to happen tomorrow. You can come back at me if it does.
No.
You won't find me. You won't find me. But I mean, but I think he's doing that all the time. And he has done it ever since April. And that's why the markets have been so steady and so firm, because believing that at the end of the day, it'll come down to the 10s and 15%. But you're right, if it does hurt us, and that's the problem, it's going to hurt your consumers, it's going to hurt your businesses. So even indirectly, places like Capitec will take a knock, but not directly. You're right. There's no tariffs going to hurt them as well, but it will affect the underlying economy, and through that, maybe the Capitecs will take a knock. But you've identified an area of the market that won't fight some of the financial areas. Property companies like that will be able to overcome it. And we've seen property very strong here as rates come down. Our long rates have come down, and it's one sector that is actually holding up and doing pretty well at the moment after a really torrid few years.
I mean, my temptation, I suppose, and I'm not the expert, you are, so let me put it to you and you can tell me if I'm wrong, would actually be to say, you know what, I'm just going to buy the JSE. I'm just going to put it in an index fund and go from there, because actually that would give me a little bit of gold, might even give me a little bit of platinum, but actually over time, yes, I will not make as much as I could if I was actively investing. But actually, as things stand, I'm just going to have to take those knocks, but opt for long-term growth, and that's how I do it.
No, that's fine. You're absolutely, you're right. It's a great strategy at a time where you don't know who the winners are going to be, and it's very difficult to sort that out. So it's not a bad strategy, because what happens is the good companies kind of float to the top in any case. So even if you look at the S&P 500, it's made up. If you buy the S&P 500, you are buying those top 10 businesses. In fact, you're buying probably the top 20 out of all 500 make up 40%. But even on the JSE, if you look at JSE and you buy the index here, you're getting companies like Process, I think, which that's kind of tariff proof. There's nothing there. BHP, ABN Bev. The only problem with ABN Bev is people are drinking less. It's got nothing to do with tariffs. And so on. Richemont, Naspers, Glencore, all of those businesses as well. So, on the JSE, it's not a bad strategy at all.
It's 12 minutes to 8. You with The Money Show. David Shapiro on Investment School this evening, the Chief Global Equity Strategist at Sasfin. How on earth do we survive, I don't know, the next year? Never mind the next 24 hours.
Can you hear that? That's the sound of someone discovering value cement at only 84.90. And yes, that's a free cappuccino while their paint is expertly mixed at 10% off. They've entered a wild world of unbelievable DIY deals. And frankly, they can't believe their luck. Join us from 17 July to 3 August for Chamberlain's famous for superb value promotion, packed with savings on DIY, outdoor and building supplies. Chamberlain, famous for hardware since 1903.
Welcome to Culture at Tops, your guide to our world of wine, beers, spirits, and more. Find incredible savings when you swipe your Spar Rewards card on all your favorites like Jameson Triple Distilled Irish Whiskey for only $359.99. Or Johnny Walker Red Label Blended Scotch Whiskey for only $249.99. Deals valid from 22 July to 6 August, only at Tops. Not for persons under the age of 18.
Feeling some lag in Sector 3?
Copy. Optimizing working capital. Ready. You're approaching a tight corner. Cash flow pressure ahead.
Low on liquidity. Supply pressure is building. Set.
Deploying cash injection in 3, 2, 1. Flow.
Nice move. Better supply chain control.
Lab time advantage. Faster cash cycles, leaner inventory, and optimized working capital.
Ready, set, cash flow. Corporate banking from RMB. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and credit provider.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, honored as the best bank for ESG in Africa and South Africa by Euro Money Awards for Excellence 2025.
The Money Show.
Investment School.
How on earth do you survive what's going on in the world at the moment? David Shapiro, the Chief Global Equity Strategist at Sasfin, with us. And of course, those big announcements we expect tomorrow. David, being more optimistic than I am, suggests that, in fact, Trump is going to chicken out. David, professional portfolio managers, I mean, how do they adjust their strategies when we see global trade being upended like this? What do the pros do?
It's not easy. And that's why you're getting so many differing opinions, simply because people can't see through this. We say that we're going to look for good quality companies, and we're in a particularly interesting area at the moment because we're right in the quarterly report season. But what does happen and what comes through, as we've seen with AB InBev's results, as we've seen with, I was looking at Ferrari today, excellent company. But what is happening is those companies are taking precautions and being very careful about what lies ahead. So it does play through, and that's why it's, we don't know. You can't forecast it. So we are in a very difficult position. As I said earlier on, European markets took a hammering today simply because the dollar got stronger. But everything is connected. There is a connection. You'll eventually find that a lot of this is related to tariffs. Why did the dollar get stronger? Because Powell doesn't understand inflation. He doesn't know what's going to happen, doesn't reduce interest rates, the dollar gets stronger. So there's always those kind of connections that play through to markets and make it very, very difficult to read. Just one thing that I wanted to, with South Africa, we pay massive tariffs. We are big tariff payers, the consumers here. Where it's going to hurt is on our export side, whether it's grapes, whether it's nachos or citrus fruits, or whether it's our wines and so on. That's where it's going to hurt particularly. Trump chickened out on the metals. Iron ore is not subject. Today, he withdrew on copper. Remember the 50% copper? So he is, he's under a lot of pressure, and I think that's why the markets are a lot steadier than we think. So, and I think he will chicken out.
I would imagine that at some point, with all of this volatility, people will be looking at each other's strategies, and someone will work out, or a group of people at the same time, more likely, the best sort of approach, and then everyone will kind of follow the best sort of approach. I mean, to an extent, is that what's likely to, or could that happen?
I don't know. There's just so many different opinions that it's very difficult to determine what the best approach is. Where the worries are in emerging markets, because those, the countries haven't got the power to punch back at Trump, and a lot of them are basic. Exporters of metals and mining goods. So I think I'm a bit concerned about that, and we have seen a lot of emerging markets, particularly Africa, coming under quite a bit of pressure on fears of what this might be for the global economy, particularly Africa.
Retail investors, can they really protect themselves from all of this? Is it something that actually the institutions are going to have to manage more than retail investors? Retail investors maybe are just going to have to sort of pick a line and stick to it and hope for the best.
The retail investors in South Africa are having a wonderful time. There's so much speculation here, movement in either direction, and very little actually related to worries about tariffs. A lot has to do with the underlying economy. And if you go outside of our the top stocks, there's plenty of action and still very positive, views on the market. And each day we're seeing, big gains. I know today was one of the down days, where we saw platinum shares and gold shares under a lot of pressure, and, some of the smaller businesses. But generally, there's quite a bit of speculation here. And I look at this every day, Steve, because don't underestimate the intelligence of the retail investor. They do a lot more learning, a lot more reading, and are very astute people. And it sometimes pays to look and see what they're doing and follow them.
I mean, and also, I suppose, a lot more research in terms of what different companies are doing. They spend a lot more time on each share.
Yes, oh yeah. And today, you've got the help of ChatGPT, of your co-pilots, of which can help you in determining and going through a lot more than you could. So there are a lot of smart people out there, and it's one thing that I do, every day, see what's a retail investor doing, where's, what's going up, what's going down, why. But to come, it is a difficult time. It's a very, very difficult time, and we've been through difficult times ever since they started to raise rates back in the end of 21. The global economy is still very uncertain.
David, as someone who I've followed for many, many, many years, I remember about 6 months ago you and I were talking, and you were quite optimistic. Now, this was before the sort of Trump tariff shock, right? And the reason that you were so optimistic was that interest rates were now coming down. It might actually have been on the day of our first cut. Also, AI was going through the roof and still is. And you were very optimistic. And the reason that I've sort of clung to that a little bit, if I may say, is because once the trade tariffs are sort of sorted out one way or another, the reasons for some of that underlying growth, so there'll be impacts on inflation, might still be there. And I presume there are still, if you look at AI, for example, some reasons to think that there might still be room for some of that optimism. Or if the trade picture just sort of, if you're right and it is a taco trade tomorrow and Trump does chicken out, that actually there is still quite a lot of room for optimism in some way. Be kind to us here, David.
No, we are. I'm very bullish on the second half of the year. No, rates will come down. We had an interest rate cut now. America will follow. There will be pressure on Powell. He's playing hardball at the moment, and simply because economic data in the U.S. is very strong. So we will get rate cuts, whether it's September or not. In the next few months or certainly year, we'll get rate cuts coming down. But in the meantime, this AI story, and I'm just urging people to look at the results that have come through. As I say, just go read Meta's results or Microsoft and hear what they have to say and how much they're spending. This is not slowing down, and the monetization is starting to happen. In other words, they're seeing people use it, and the benefits will flow through. So we will be a lot higher by the end of the year than we are now.
Sure. Okay. And that means that really there's a lot of value to be made if you manage yourself properly.
Oh, yeah. It's not difficult. You don't need to be too clever to buy good companies. Just average people like me can do it.
David Shapiro, as always, really enjoyed talking to you. Thanks so much. Really appreciate the time. David Shapiro on Investment School this evening. Always, I did tell you that it was going to be a treat. He's the Chief Global Equity Strategist at Sasfin. I really particularly like the sort of optimism that he still has after everything that we've been through over the last little while. Running a business? Absa Business Banking gets it. The pressure, the pace, the risk, that's all on you. You need more than banking. You need flexible funding, real-world tools, and sector expertise that shows up when it matters. But most of all, you need a banking partner that gets it. So talk business with Absa Business Banking, because they get it. Your story matters. Absa is an authorized FSB and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, honored as the best bank for ESG in Africa and South Africa by Euro Money Awards for Excellence 2025.
Well, you heard David talking about Powell keeping rates on hold. The US President Donald Trump again very angry with him as a result, and airing that a little while ago earlier today. Well, US markets still, of course, looking at that data from Meta and from Microsoft that came out yesterday. The Dow Jones, though, down 0.23%. The Nasdaq heading up 0.5%, and the S&P 500 up 0.15% at the moment. I don't know how the timeline is going to work from here. Literally, sort of tweet by tweet from President Trump in terms of what kind of tariff we're going to get. I do know that you and I will be having a conversation about it tomorrow. I look forward to it. Thanks for being with us on The Money Show. It's 8 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Maki Malapo. President Cyril Ramaphosa has appointed Gauteng Judge President Dustin Mlambo as the Deputy Chief Justice of South Africa. The appointment follows a recommendation by the Judicial Service Commission last month. Mlambo, the President's spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya.
President Ramaphosa has in writing informed Chief Justice Mandisa Maya that in appointing Justice Mlambo, the President has considered the views of the Judicial Service Commission and the views of the political parties represented in the National Assembly.
Acting Police Minister Firoz Kachalia is expected to take his oath of office at the Union Buildings tomorrow. The presidency confirmed the swearing-in ceremony shortly after the Constitutional Court dismissed an application from the MK party to challenge his appointment. Kachalia will be the first minister in this administration to be chosen from outside of Parliament. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
President Cyril Ramaphosa announced almost 2 weeks ago that he was suspending Police Minister Senzo Mchunu and invoking his constitutional powers to make an outside appointment to act in the role, while a commission of inquiry probes corruption allegations within the police service. While the MK party argued before the Constitutional Court yesterday that making another ministerial appointment was irregular and a waste of taxpayers' money, the court today ruled that it will have to restart the legal process in the High Court. The judgment paves the way for Firoz Kachalia, who today retires as an academic from Wits University, to officially become part of the executive tomorrow. Meanwhile, today's retirement of Acting Deputy Chief Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga frees him up to probe the corruption and collusion allegations hanging over Mchunu while he's on special leave, another decision the MK party sought to challenge. While Kachalia will sit in Ramaphosa's cabinet, he won't be a member of parliament. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News.
Economists say the decision to cut the repo rate by 25 basis points by the Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee will go some way to spurring growth in the country's sluggish economy. Earlier, Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago wrapped up the MPC's July meeting with an announcement on adjustments to the policy rates. During his signature address, Kganyago weighed the heightened global risks against the more favorable domestic conditions. Nugukanyam Dambo takes a look at the reactions to the MPC's decision.
Today's 25 basis point cut is the second consecutive one since the May meeting. Economics professor at the Northwest University Business School, Raymond Parsons, says the move was the right decision for the economy in present circumstances. He says the easing in borrowing costs for business and consumers are positive for confidence levels at a time when the GDP continues to undershoot. Economist at Sanlam Investments, Patrick Buthelezi, also weighs in.
Locally, economic growth forecast has been revised lower to about 0.9% this year, but is expected to improve in the outer years, reaching 2% in 2027, benefiting from the implementation of structural reforms.
But Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago says uncertainty triggered by disruptive U.S. trade policy cannot be ignored.
The challenges of the global environment highlight the urgency of domestic reform for accelerating growth.
During the MPC announcement, the central bank also revised its inflation target down to 3% on the lower end of its inflation target band of 3 and 6%, an unexpected move economists have also welcomed. Nogukanyam Dambo, Eyewitness News.
Over in the courts, the Lusikisiki massacre trial, where 18 people were shot and killed at Ngobozana village in the Eastern Cape last year, has been delayed once again, this time around over outstanding witness statements in the matter. Today, the state in the case led evidence from its first witness in the Mthatha High Court, sitting in Lusikisiki for the trial. But defense lawyers say they cannot cross-examine the witness because most of what he said is not contained in the statements furnished to them. Speaking on behalf of the families of the victims, David King raised concerns about the number of postponements in the case.
Seemingly, the postponement of this case on a daily basis is what we're going to experience. And it's actually going to drag longer than we anticipated.
The matter will return to court tomorrow morning. The DA in KwaZulu-Natal says it's concerned about security and intelligence in the province following the killing of politicians and traditional leaders. 2 suspects linked to the murder of party councillor in the Umgeni local municipality, Nhlalayenza Ndlovu, appeared in the Howick Magistrates Court today. Ndlovu was shot and killed at his home in eMpophomeni in December 2023. Party leader Franco Rogers attended the proceedings.
The two suspects, one a senior Nkosi from the district, Zuma, who's involved in a second murder case, appeared before the magistrate.
Rogers outlined his concerns.
We had appointed a forensic private investigation team who had already determined who was behind this and the motives behind it. We had tried continuously to engage with SAPS, and it appears that there is something more sinister when it comes to the security and the intelligence in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, particularly amongst traditional leaders and amongst politicians.
Gold's trading at $3,293.43 an ounce. The rand's at 18.21 to the dollar, at 24.03 to the pound, at 20.78 to the euro. Brent crude oil's at $72.50 a barrel. A look at your weather. A fine Friday in store for Gauteng. Tomorrow, Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 7 degrees and peak at highs of 19. Pretoria is at 9 and 21. Vereeniging's at 4 and 17 degrees. A cloudy start for Cape Town, otherwise fine, along with fresh southeasterly winds at a low of 9 and a high of 15 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. President Cyril Ramaphosa has appointed Gauteng Judge President Dustin Mlambo the Deputy Chief Justice of South Africa.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
Aubrey Masango.
Live streaming countrywide on Prime Media Plus, DSTV channel 856,
92.7 and 106 FM.
7 minutes after 8 o'clock, and welcome to the show. My name is Aubrey Masango, and it is indeed a pleasure and an honor to be in your company. I'm looking forward to some great conversation tonight, especially because there are some great topics that have been arranged by the team of producers led by Osuntateng this evening, and I'm really looking forward to some great conversation. Dunstan Mlambo is now South Africa's Deputy Chief Justice. Yeah. There's a guy that's been around, There's a guy that's been around for some time. Of course, he's had his own issues and controversies in the bench from when he was just a magistrate all the way up to the point where he is now. Congratulations to him. I think he's a solid guy. I like him. But yeah, I suppose there are those who will have issues with that particular appointment. But I find him to be a very rational and fair individual.